All right, we're back with another episode, hour of the Three Stooges podcast. Joe Davidson, Sacramento Bee, Chris Jackson of West Coast Preps, Jordan Georgeson of Gold Country Media. We cover high school sports big time all throughout Northern California. Big time emphasis on the Sac Joaquin section. It's the second largest section of the 10 dotted across the state. What's the largest one? The LA City section, Los Angeles. We've all driven to the bottom of the grapevine, and there's the whole vastness of all of it down there. A lot of basketball going on as the seasons are heating up. Always football in the news. We just ran our Sacramento Bee All Metro football teams this week. Chris Jackson is working on one for all section and all Northern California for West Coast Preps. These aren't easy to do. I dread this job. I love my job, but the hardest gig that I have, and Chris, I'm going to ask you about this too, and you too, Jordan, because you do some of these similar lists as well for your areas in specific. Um, the fear of overlooking a guy because somebody didn't nominate a name or they're defiant or they're whatever. It's just, why does it bug me? Because we care. And these are things to chronicle for years and years. And it's been a couple of days and I haven't gotten any of those nasty emails. Hey, you overlooked this or that. And I also put a disclaimer in there how these teams are picked. And you got to be nominated by coaches or have been seen. And there's a big emphasis on team playoff success. These are not all league teams. Some teams play 4 or 5 games after league play. Those are the games that matter, which is why we named Brody Rudnicki as the player of the year. Wait a minute, that's quite true. If there were 5 more games, he might have won it. But anyway, so Chris, I'm going to throw it right to you real quick. Um, do you share any of my angst of geez, what if I overlook a guy or something like that? They're fun teams to do, but you just kind of how can we squeeze all these names in? Uh, Yours is going to be harder because you have a more broader reach. My Sacramento area all metro team does not include the St. Mary's Rams of Stockton or the Oakdale Mustangs of the 209 or the Sonora Wildcats. So I don't have to worry about those guys, but you do.
Yeah, so there's a lot of teams that go into it. With the Sac Joaquin section is the second largest in the state. So trying to think of how many teams that is off the top of my head. But I mean, we just had third team come out today, second team tomorrow, first team Thursday. We'll have our athlete of the year, coach of the year finals on Friday. And all I will say is you're going to see one guy that doesn't win athlete of the year in this region. It's because he's going to be getting a bigger award too. So that's why. But I mean, I always have that fear of missing on someone, something. That's why I like to go through this, I don't know, 20 times with my own eyes and then send to people like Jordan, others that I know, and just be like, hey, did I miss somebody? What do you think? What do you think about this spot, this spot, this spot? Yeah, I mean, I don't really care if people get upset, angry about it, and that's not in terms that I don't care what they think. It's just that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of this job, right? I got into it knowing people are gonna be upset about some stuff, and I expect parents, coaches, teams, sometimes you're going to stick up for your guys, and that's okay. I don't take that personal if you're like, why isn't my guy on there? Hey, you're just sticking up for your guy. That's the way it is. That's loyalty. That's commendable. I want you to stick up for your guys and your teams. I'd probably have some concerns if you didn't, to be honest with you. But I mean, it's not easy. I enjoy it in a lot of ways too. I just have that fear that maybe I'm missing somebody. That's always the biggest thing of it, but it's a lot of fun. It's more so just the thought of the season's over when I'm doing it, where I'm like, darn, this kind of sucks, right? It feels like we were just in Orangevale on August 22nd, starting the season with that 8 p.m. kickoff instead of 7:30 because of the heat, right? So it kind of brings back those
And
memories.
don't forget an 11:35 ending game. It
Yeah,
still bothers me.
yeah, that was a
I
long
mean, it's all
game.
those months ago, but it still bothers me.
Yeah, that was probably the longest game of the season, and it started the year too, right? So I don't know how late you got home, but none of us got home at a normal hour for this job,
We
I
all
should say.
miss curfew.
It's not a normal hour anyway for those nights, but in terms of this job, it was not a normal hour to get back. But it's more just the thought of the season's over, the memories creep in of like, holy crap, what a fun season. But it also showed me like I had a lot more athletes this year I put on than usual. There's usually a position group or two where I'll change our format for it because heck, this position is just really good this year. And maybe I should add one or two more kids per first, second, third team for that position. We don't do honorable mention either, so I'll do a little more for each one. But like athlete this year, there were so many two-way guys, right? There were guys that I just knew were deserving of first team, second team, third team. So I had more of those positions than others. Like, there's no way I can't have a Max Springgold on first team. There's no way I can't have a Jackson Fay of EC Union on first team. There's no way I can't have AJ Banks of Atwater on one of these three teams. There's no way that I can't have Cass Stevens of Whitney on one of these teams or Colton Burns of Wheatland on one of these teams, right? The linebacker position was great. Wide receiver, there's a lot of guys, quarterbacks. I mean, you name it, but the athlete spot especially, it's like, okay, I'll adapt a little bit, right? You want to have your certain format, you want to have your certain layout outlined for it. But sometimes you also get those positions where, Joe, I think you had maybe even more all-purpose guys than usual too when I looked at it, just because you understood it. There's a lot of freaking good two-way players, and as much as I think I've seen in quite some time.
No, and and I get this response every once in a while. I've done the all metro teams at the B since 89, 1989, pre-internet, 5-year-old prodigy. People go, oh, that's cool. Not quite true, give or take 10 years, 15. Um, the all-purpose is a nice spot to put somebody who doesn't fit elsewhere. AP being all-purpose. Reeve Sloan is a three-time B all-metro player. Jordan knows him well. You know him well. He's the 3-year starting quarterback for the Rockland Thunder out of Placer County. He's going to University of Nevada. He wasn't going to be first team quarterback with all these great quarterbacks, but he's an all-purpose guy. He's a leader. He's a winner. He's all of those things. So that's where all-purpose helps. And the other thing I hear over the years is, how many? There's so many guys on there. Yeah, well, we're only going with one quarterback, two or three running backs. Sometimes the offensive line goes from 5 to 7 because you gotta, geez, you're gonna have the Grant players are gonna be in, and the Folsom guys are gonna be in there, and Oak Ridge and Colton Hogue of 12 Bridges. All of a sudden you're running out of spots. Jesuit guy, and sometimes I'll hear this where you guys do this long enough, you'll hear it too, where geez, the All Metro team in 1980, I was a senior, it had so many, this or that. And I said, yeah, that was 40 schools ago. And you think about that, maybe more. I mean, I ran a list on Twitter the other day. You think of all the Placer County schools, the Whitney, Rockland, Granite Bay, Wood Creek, West Park. Those schools weren't even around 20 something years ago, not to mention all the Oak Grove Unified. So when you have growth, you're going to have more schools. You have more schools, you're going to have more names. And the small school football around here has never been better. It used to be those guys were just going to be on your honorable mention list. Now they're first team guys, and we branched out, flushed it out to have players of the year and all that. So, Jordan, I'm going to throw it to you here. One thing, we're all ripe for criticism. That's part of our gig. But sometimes people take it too far. Our good friend Nick Pecoraro, he does stuff for me at the Sacramento Bee. He works at Max Preps. He did an all Sac Joaquin section football team. Tough assignment to do. He doesn't have big, vast lists. And we appreciate the Grant Pacers. We've covered the Grant Pacers. The coaches are spirited and loyal to their guys. But I thought that they were a bit out of their lane in calling out Nick Pecoraro and just any hints on social media that media restrictions are going to go into place and basically we're going to punish you type of thing. Come on. I mean, you guys are better than that. And those guys who complained are good coaches, good guys, alums of the school, but you don't need to go public. It was Julian Bruno, who they felt was overlooked in the All-Sac Joaquin section team. Got a lot of teams on that all-section team. So, Jordan, over to you. That's part of it. You can't please everybody, but fair critique is fair critique, and harsh critique is sometimes a little unwarranted.
Yeah, I think it just, comes with the nature of the beast. I mean, we've all talked. We're doing our first all gold country team coming out in January. And, Chris, you mentioned receivers and linebackers were hard to narrow down. And that was actually the position groups we had the hardest time with because there were a lot of guys where we felt like, okay, well, we can't overlook this guy. And, we had to come up with some athlete slots because we don't have the honorable mention list either, just because we're too small of an area. to really, if we start listing honorable mentions, I think we're going to be listing every starter for a program. So, it's the reality
Such
is,
a hater.
right. And I mean, the reality is, it's frustrating to see that because I always say, and I think everyone said, these lists aren't perfect. When you're dealing with, at the end of the day, I mean, hundreds of names and, nominations, and you have to look through stats. You have to consider the level of competition. You have to consider off the field stuff. You have to consider a million different things, injuries, everything. Or, a case like there's a player, Chris and I talked about, Josiah Rubidoux, top 25 in the section in receiving yards at Colfax. He only had 17 tackles this year and 2 interceptions, but that's because he was the best defensive back for Colfax by far this year, and teams weren't throwing his way. So you have to consider things like that too, where, yeah, it doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but you watch that kid play and the kid's a star. I mean, there's no question about that. So there's more that goes into it. And we've seen too where stats get inflated. There was a kid a few years ago at Lincoln, I remember, finished the regular season in 10 games with 180 tackles. And I immediately was questioning it, going, hey, this doesn't seem right, especially considering the game that I saw him play. He got 7 tackles. So where did he make up for that with the averaging 18 a game outside of it? Well, maybe his tackle stats are inflated. So we have to consider all those things. And, a player getting left off these lists isn't a slight on this player. It's not a slight on the program. It's not a slight on anyone. But the reality is we have to cut the list off somewhere. And sometimes it just happens. And, we had a hard time with a few players on our Gold Country team that maybe didn't make the list that I felt like, should have, or that Matt Long, my coworker, felt like should have. But the reality was we were kind of looking at it like he just, we have to cut it somewhere. And if we keep this going, then at what point are we going to stop it? So, it's frustrating to see that because I don't think people realize the work that goes in this list. And yes, overlooks happen. We'll be the first to admit it. And you know what? We can always go back and add a player in if the right case is made. But I mean, threatening to change your media policy, I mean, you're not going to stop max preps from coming to your games. That's ridiculous. The school doesn't get to decide which credentialed media in terms of like legitimate credentials that are working for an active outlet can come and go to their games. So, you can threaten it all you want, but we'll still see you on the sidelines next season. You guys don't have the authority to do that. But and just know, no one is, it's not a knock on these kids. We're not slighting these kids if they get left off a list. It's just, overlooks happen sometimes. And also you have to cut it off somewhere. And the sad reality is, at the end of the day, it's just a list. It's not going to stop these kids from getting recruited in college. It's just, a list that's made. Nobody is getting patches on their Letterman jacket from us for it. Nobody is, missing out on opportunities because, oh, I would have recruited this guy, but he didn't make all Metro or all Gold Country or all West Coast preps or whatever. If you can play, you can play. And at the end of the day, the best thing about it is these lists are still all talk and all chatter, and everything that actually matters still gets settled on the field.
Well said. And just to refresh, Gold Country Media, your all-star teams include your coverage area in Placer County, also up Highway 50, which is the Folsom Bulldogs, the Oak Ridge Trojans, and right up the line. So that's happens to be some of the best football in Northern California. Small school all the way down to all the way up to the largest, and Forest Hill, 8-man juggernaut with some pretty good playmakers there. And I commend you for doing that. I appreciate that you do football rankings and also section rankings and girls and boys basketball rankings. And it's all about getting the word out. And anybody who thinks that this stuff helps them in recruiting, the recruiters aren't looking at these things. And we hear this all the time. And Chris, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Where sometimes you'll hear from a parent and said, "Oh, the UCLA coach said that if my son scored 15 touchdowns, they'll offer him a scholarship." Well, that's a lie. I'm sure they didn't tell you that. They don't care about yards and stats and strength of schedules and wins and losses. They really don't when they're looking at 100 to 200 video clips a week that are submitted around from across the country. They are looking for, what is it a recruiter is looking for, Chris Jackson? They are looking for film that pops? Is this guy a ballistic athlete? Is he
Do
just
they have
pile
do they
driving
have the
somebody in
size?
the
Do they have
trenches?
the
Is his
potential?
closing speed as a secondary? Is he big? Then they want to see their transcripts. They want to see, their grades and what they look like. And is he a qualifier? That's what they're looking for. They're not going to crunch down. Oh, they're ranked here, or there, or nothing. They want to see video clips. And you see this on field level, Chris. I usually camp out in the press box. When you get older, you start doing those kind of things. You start saying, I can't navigate these stairs, or you just prefer the comfort of the press box. But anyways, you're on field level, Jordan. You can tell the difference between a legitimate Division One recruit to maybe an FCS subdivision recruit to a JC guy or a guy who's just a pretty darn good high school player, but he's not going to be playing in college. Doesn't mean he's not a good player. You got to be some measure of elite to get recruited.
This is why we have a separate thing too, where we do a top 65 player rankings after postseason award stuff. It's completely separate. It's based on skill level, recruiting, their whole career too, right? So you might see a kid that may not be first team because of production, right? But that doesn't mean that they're not an unbelievable player, that they're not a great player that's going to be playing at a Power Four school, right? That Phil probably covered some kids that have been second, third team in their area, but they end up at, I don't know, an ACC, a Big Ten school, and it has nothing to do with their skill level or talent. It just has to do with sometimes some other kids have just a ridiculous season of impact production and that stuff. And heck, maybe they were hurt. But if you're a 6'4", 240 edge rusher, it's pretty obvious that you're going to have a chance. If you're a 6'4", 220 tight end, it's pretty obvious that you've got a chance. If you're a 6'3" quarterback with a great arm and you can move, you've got those mechanics, it's obvious you're going to be recruited and you're going to be that guy, right? So there's so much that goes into it. Now with the portal, when it comes to recruiting, it's all insane what's happening. Now I don't know, we've got freaking pro athletes are going back to college now. I'm seeing in basketball, guys being drafted in the NBA going back to college 2 years later. So there's so many things. There's the portal they got to evaluate now, and a lot of times that's at the top of some of these staff's lists. You've got the film, and they always say film doesn't lie. They want to see live evals. They hire different scouts from different companies from across the country for that too. There are verified measurables they get at camps, transcripts, and then they want to know if you fit their program, right? Do you have that mindset? Some coaches will have the hard edge mantra. Do you have that hard edge mentally and physically to get through every day? Also, there's going to be some schools like a high academic D3. They have the academic program that you want to, right? Like, does Lewis and Clark have the major? Does Puget Sound have the major that you're looking at for a certain type of engineering, business, finance, whatever it is, right? So there's a whole list of different things that go into it. Production helps. The impact looks cool. I mean, all the all region stuff looks good in their bio, but that's definitely not the end all be all. I would probably have some questions for a recruiter if they say if you get 15 touchdowns, we'll offer you a scholarship. If there's someone saying that, they're probably not doing their job when it comes to recruiting. They're probably not watching through hours of film and got their prospect sheets on their boards in the office, right? So it's not an exact science when it comes to recruiting either. Unfortunately, we've covered kids that get missed too. Like it looked like for a while, JJ Yawn was going to be missed from Roseville. Well, now he's got D1 offers that we all knew were well deserved, right? It took later in the process, but his coaches kept pumping him out. He kept pumping himself out, and he kept getting good film and trusted the process, and
And there he is.
Yep.
Well, and the next signing day is February 4th. And so JJ Young is an example of patience and perseverance. Certainly big, long, talented. You've reported on him. We've all seen him. Not everybody's going to get snatched up. That's why it's the early signing period. And then there's the next signing period, February 4th. But it also is reflective, as we've discussed many times, that it's hard to get scholarships. 98% of high school kids do not get scholarships in college. That it means that only a select few. So kudos to those guys. And as we segue out of football here, Sac State today announced that new coach Alonzo Carter has filled out his coaching staff. has a new general manager, has retained some guys, and some of these are familiar names. Angus McClure is the associate head coach for Alonzo Carter. He's a great coach from yesteryear at Sac State. He played in the offensive line in the 1990s for Sac State, was the associate head coach there, coached all across the country, including at Nebraska and Kansas. Fantastic personality, great addition. He will work alongside with longtime Sac State offensive line coach Chris Richardson, who's been retained. Bobby Fresquez on the offensive staff will be retained. Chris Perry will remain as the assistant general manager. He's been on the staff for a long time. Otis Amy, former Sac State All-American, still has all kinds of school records for Sac State as a receiver from the early 2000s. Played a little bit in the NFL for the 49ers. He's the director of player personnel. And then John Osterhout, longtime coach at American River College, is going to be the general manager. What's a general manager do? Roster construction, how to allocate scholarships, all that paperwork, dealing with transfers. I think it's a great hire there. He's a former Sac State All-American offensive lineman, longtime assistant coach there, did great work at American River College. So that's a pretty good staff. And they got some local guys, some retained guys. They'll be curious to see what happens there. It sounds like Sac State now has a 10-game schedule with 2 games to go. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was only 4 games, so that schedule's coming along, and away we go. So, Jordan, back over to you. You were at the Kendall Arnett tournament in Auburn in Placer County. You talked about it a little bit last week, but it's okay to refresh. Why is that event so cool? What did you see? Who won, and what games are going on today and tonight?
Yeah, it was Chris was joining me there yesterday. It was great, one of my favorite tournaments of the year. I think it is about as pure a form of high school basketball as you can find. But what I love is it's all local teams, so it's hosted by Placer High School every single year since 1943, except for COVID in 2021, because that was kind of that weird spring season. Everything was going on. I think they just opted not to do it. But they said that yeah, 83rd year of this tournament. It's the oldest high school basketball tournament in the state of California, and there are rumors that it is the oldest west of the Mississippi. I have debunked those rumors because I think there's some tournament out in like Kansas or something that gives it a run for its money, but this thing is still up there. I mean, 83 years. The fans that are in the stands at these games weren't even alive when this tournament started. Their parents might have not even been alive when this tournament started. What's awesome about this too is, Chris, you mentioned it yesterday. We got there for the first tip-off at 3:30 with Colfax and Del Campo, and we can talk about how impressive Colfax boys looked in that game. But there were Placer fans already kind of lining up outside and getting their spots in for that gym and in that building. It was, cool to see. I've never really seen, we've seen previous years them get the big crowd for the Placer game, but that was one of the first times I remember seeing such a big crowd for the 3:30 games. Some great matchups yesterday. I mean, Colfax beat up on Del Campo. That was a game that Del Campo hung around for a while, and Colfax just blew the doors off in the second half. 35 points in the third quarter alone. Second game they did Del Oro Foothill, a game that I think ended up a 21-point game, but was much closer than that score indicated. Foothill has some kids that can shoot. Then Del Oro, if you don't know who freshman Kian Mula is, you're gonna know that name. And how about Mikey Root too? Chris and I said, instead of when we do our all gold country teams, all section teams, we should do an all grit team or an all dog team. And I think Mikey Root's gonna be the captain of that team. That kid had a couple shots. He's not the biggest kid on the floor, maybe what, 5'7", 5'8". He had multiple times where he was driving to the hoop and just got a shot swatted back in his face because he's a little guy and did not stop. Ended up scoring 14 points. Just a gritty kid, great on defense, great how he facilitates the offense. And I mean, you would not think that this kid is the size that he is. Fun kid to watch. Nevada Union Rio Americano, another great game. And then the nightcap, Placer against Amador. Cool thing about that, Placer does their senior night on night 1 of the Kendall with the whole town in there. It feels like a playoff environment. The band is loud. And what I loved about it is they start 5 seniors on senior night, no matter, how good or bad they are. A couple of these kids, it was their first varsity start. A couple, it was their first high school start. There was one of them, he hadn't even played high school basketball until this last season. It was his first high school action that he had seen all year. He ended up scoring 6 points in the game. Another kid making his first high school start dishes out a couple assists. Another kid, I've been covering Placer basketball for a few years. I don't think I've seen this kid, get in the game a ton. He comes in and starts knocking down threes. This crowd's erupting. I talked to them after the game. They just said, how cool it is to kind of get that experience. The team they play, Amador, they're led by Placer alum James Lynch, who played in 1997 with head coach Nate Sweezy. They were on the team together. So kind of cool that he gets to come back and coach against them in the Kendall Arnett with his kid on the team. So just a really cool story. And I mean, some great talent there. We mentioned some of the DO kids, but I mean, how can you not mention Cannon Rector and Emmett Rose at Placer? Nevada Union has some talent on their squad. Foothill's got some names. And then, I mean, up at Colfax, we saw Caleb Edlund, whose dad was the 1974 Sac Bee Player of the Year. He played in the Kendall Arnett back in 1974, had Caleb late, and Caleb led the Falcons to a big win, 22 points in that game. Kyler Simpton, the son of Colfax girls basketball coach Rexanne Simpton, that kid's going to be good at basketball. I think he had 8 points, 5 assists in that game. I think most of them came in the first half. He's only a sophomore. He's going to be scary. Carson Lynch, the point guard at Colfax, great player. Silas Latito, another great player for Colfax, another undersized kid that can, flat out play. In the semifinal matchups we get tonight are going to be fantastic if anyone's around to check them out. You've got Del Oro and Rio Americano. I think 6 o'clock is a tip off for that one. That's going to be a great matchup. And then Colfax Placer for the nightcap at 8 o'clock. Colfax is 11-1, Placer 12-1. That's going to be a fun game. I mean, that's two old PVL rivals. That gym's going to be packed because those two still, even though they don't play each other often in a lot of sports, there's still a lot of people that still very much care for that old rivalry. And what I love about it too, there's so many people on both sides of it. Placer girls basketball coach Tony Camelucci played in the Kendall Arnett when he was a student at Colfax back in the 80s. And you have a million stories like that of, well, I coached at Colfax, but I played at Placer, or vice versa. I coached at both schools. I played at both schools. And it's really just a family affair when you go there. And Chris, I know you can attest to some of it, but I don't think there's much of a better high school basketball environment around than this tournament.
No, there isn't. I think I was speaking with you yesterday about I love this. I love the Bambauer Classic that Marin Catholic hosts. There's a lot of local teams. That one of Marin Catholic we get University from San Francisco, a great coach in Basolo, gets his team out there. Some East Bay teams, North Bay teams. This is similar to you get teams from the Foothills. You get Foothill from Palisadro, also, which is really cool. They like to come down to this tournament every year, but it just feels like old school high school basketball at its finest. And Placer's got the new court, but you walk into this gym, right? And I think my father called me, I think on the way as I was driving up. Heck, maybe I called him. I have no idea, but I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Placer. He's like, isn't that the one with the cool gym? I'm like, yep, that's right. Even you know it, and you live in Oregon, right? So it's super cool. Just they've got all the banners. They got the former winners up there on the wall. I was taking a look at the trophy in there yesterday too. I think in the hospitality room, I'm like, holy crap, there's Miraloma winning in like 67 and 71. So that means maybe the Fighting Scott Tedmans won it one year there, right? So, but it's awesome. The schools they get. I would love to own a pair of those Nevada Union jerseys and shorts because it just has that really cool old school feel. I want that Colfax warm-up shirt too. I want those plastered it just honestly, it's all awesome. It's great coaches too. Like Chris Jones at Rio Americano is just a savant of the game. You talk to him about basketball, and he'll always say he thinks he's really not a good coach. Remember when he told me that last year? I'm like, okay, buddy. Yeah, I'd say you're probably pretty good, right? Every opposing coach is always like, oh, we got to play Rio. Doesn't matter who they have, man. They've got talent, but we got to coach against Chris, right? And that's not an easy thing, but it's awesome. And then when you've got Placer doing the starting the seniors and the band rolls in and the cheerleaders are right there courtside, and I looked like they were doing stuff in the game before the Placer game. When I walked out there at like 7:30, all of a sudden cheerleaders are doing stuff. The band is all in there hyped up, and that place is filled up. There's people walking into that gym at 3:30. They are there. They've got their seat cushions. They are there all day for every game, and they will be all day there probably again today, and then on New Year's Eve, and then whatever the heck they do for New Year's after that, right? But it is the best way to go into it. And there's people I recognize that were there last year that I don't think have any affiliation to any kid on those teams that are still going.
I mean, I had a parent or
So
a
that's
person
good stuff.
reaching out to me, asking if I could send them a picture of the graphic so they could print it out and keep it with them so that they had it at the tournament. I mean, that's the type of people that go to this. It's, this is the hottest ticket in town for these 3 days in Auburn.
I think it's fantastic. Great breakdown by both of you guys and terrific coverage in Gold Country Media and covering these games and these players. And the Colfax coach is a former Colfax Falcon too, if I remember correctly. So there's some more of that tradition and that carries on. So he knows how to get to that gym and he knows what it means. Um, and also the great thing about that gym is people are elevated. So you're looking down at the action. And we know the great Mike Sabins is deeply involved as the activities director. He's going to get the band involved and everybody involved and the students. He's an alum of Placer High, former football coach, head football coach, assistant coach with the Hillman. And we see that down with Brian Kilby down in the Elk Grove Unified at Franklin High School, where he's the baseball coach. And also the activities director. And so when you go to a Franklin basketball game, the band's going to be involved. So some of these schools do a really good job of getting the whole campus involved, and it's just
Joe,
really
we
cool.
we didn't even mention the biggest shout out we need to give. Placer Vice Principal Jeff Walters might be the best PA
Oh,
announcer I have
easily,
ever heard at the high
easily,
school level. I mean, he could do
easily.
NBA games. I'm not even kidding. The way he conducts himself and the way he gets that crowd into it. If the Kings are ever looking for someone, he needs to apply. I'll apply for him
Here,
because
here, here is
he was
my here's my case. The section championships every year for now on a Golden One needs to be a mix of him and Aaron Jackson. I don't know, maybe every other
absolutely.
game, it's these two because the energy, the passion they have, the knowledge they have for the game. If it's not Jeff Walters and Aaron Jackson, I'm not trying to take offense to anybody, but these two are just so dang good at being
Jeff
public
Walters, who
address
used
announcers.
to, Jeff Walters, the pride of Del Oro High School, is a graduate and a former head coach.
Yeah, and he
Yes.
was a great head coach at Liberty and Brentwood before he went back to his alma
Yes, he
mater
was.
there.
And I think he was on the Del Oro coaching staff this past season, Jordan. And I've known him for years. Terrific coach, good guy. I didn't know he can get on the mic and rev it up. How cool. How's that for a verse? That should be the number one thing on his resume.
Oh yeah, that I mean that's you get principal jobs based on your PA ability these days now. I think that's the rule.
That's right. I think it's, that's his great spirit. So good for him. And no, very cool. So I was chatting with our good friend, our mutual good friend, Matthew Bissett of the NFHS Network and ABC Jam Productions. He does, and speaking of good voices, who does good stuff on the call. Here's some of the freshman players that we boiled down over the years. And some of these names. You already mentioned some of these guys. All of these are freshmen.
Yep.
Chris, you've done some work on some of these guys too. What a list. They include Julianne Williams of Monterey Trail of the Oak Grove Unified, Kian Mula of Del Oro, you guys just mentioned, William Phillips of Sac High, King Griffin of Sac High, great name, King Griffin, Braden Smith of Rockland, Placer County, Jackson Harris of Oak Ridge, Marcus Harris of Nuptomus, Jaden DeHoos Eves of Christian Brothers, Marvin Crump of Grant, Santana Robinson of Laguna Creek. All of them are freshmen. And so the first thing I think, this is where we are now. Chris Jackson, this is where we are now in high school sport. Wow, that guy's going to be a 4-year anchor at this school, this school, this school. Unless one of the prep schools come swooping in to try to grab these guys and BS the parents. We're going to develop and this and that. BS, stay in your lane. You don't have to go somewhere else to get a scholarship. Same thing in football. It carries over in basketball. Recruiters want to see film clip. You could see if a guy's a great three-point shooter, a ball handler, or a thunder dunker, or a rebounder. And then you could cross-check his transcripts and his height and everything. That's what you need. So, Chris Jackson, when we mention these freshmen, you've reported on some of these guys. It's a heck of a crop. These are just some of the guys we know. I probably overlooked a few, but you don't have to go anywhere. Duro of Monterey Trail was terrific. Was an all-metro basketball player for the Sacramento Bee, and then he goes up to Nevada. It wasn't a prep school, but why would you go? Not him. It's the parents. We get that. But sometimes leaving doesn't mean it's going to be a greener grass or whatever that saying is. So let's just hope these guys, we're not supposed to root in media, but we do collectively, the three of us root that these guys stay put. You don't have to leave to find greener pastures.
And I'll selfishly admit, I just want to cover them for 4 years, right? Like I wanted to cover Devon Duro for 4 years, especially being someone that doesn't live too far from Monterey Trail, right? It just selfishly that would have been cool. Who knows? Maybe kid comes back by the end of his career, right? But in basketball, especially a lot of these live evaluations, they're happening at AAU tournaments. That's when a lot of these colleges they just don't have time. This is the coincides. It's not like they're traveling across the country throughout this season for different games. They got the practice. It's not like football where there's a game on a Friday, they play on Saturday, this, that. These schedules do not align really at all. So that's why they've got their live evaluation periods at AAU tournaments or like Section 7 in Arizona. Now, California, the last few years has had Cali Live. So you'll see a lot of college coaches there. So unfortunately, you get a lot of people that don't have the best interest of the kids or their families that try to entice them to go to a certain school, a certain program, saying, hey, this is going to be better for you in the long run. But in reality, is it? You're already really freaking good. You're 6'7", you're 6'8", you're 6'6", you're a guard. You've got the handles, you can shoot, you can defend, you can pass the ball really well. You don't have to go anywhere else. Trust me on that. You'll still get great exposure wherever you're at, especially this day and age. We haven't seen this many videographers at games in my entire life. Now it's baselines are covered with videographers, right? They're getting exposure. We're getting you guys exposure. Joe, Jordan, everybody is, right? So it's so easy, I think, to track and find players nowadays with the age of social media and the way all the different websites were filmed, like Huddle or you name it for other stuff too. But this freshman class is awesome. Julian Williams at Monterey Trail. His father's a basketball coach, Coach Ponderosa. I'd say he could stay at Monterey Trail for all 4 years, honestly. He loves it there. He's a really disciplined kid, about a 6'3", 6'4" combo guard, super smooth. I mean, he's wise beyond his ears too. Last year he trained 5 times per day. Just talk about a kid that wants it. Or Keon Mula at Delora, watching him yesterday, you could see just 6'8", the way he moves, the way he grabs rebounds, gets inside, blocks shots. The way he sees the floor really impressed me too. And Jaden DeJesus Eves at Christian Brothers, 6'8", big. And his interview with me, I think last month, doctor said he's probably not done growing. He'll probably add another few more inches. That's scary. And he wanted to go
He
to
is
Christian.
7-footer.
Yeah, he said he wanted to go to Christian Brothers. He was at games last year and he wants to win a section title there, but he also said he wants to beat Jesuit, right? So he understands that. Maybe some of these kids do stay for 4 years. I hope they do, selfishly. Hope they do. It'd be cool to see William Phillips at Sac High for 4 years because what is he, a 6'7" guard? Number 3 in America in his class by one recruiting service. You can't teach those skills. I'm not trying to blow smoke, but if you're a 6'7" guard and have those skills, there is a chance that you could be a lottery pick in 4 or 5 years, right? That just the guys that we see. I'm not trying to put pressure on him or to pressure on any of these guys, but those traits translate, right? You don't have to go anywhere else. You don't have to go to a different state or in Arizona. I've covered too many kids that move to a so-called prep school and then it come to find out it didn't work out. It didn't help them at all, and the academic portion of it just wasn't good either, right? It sucks. You hear it from the family, you hear it from the kids. Like they regret that they weren't at their school, they weren't, I don't know, playing in that same system for 4 years, and they just weren't home, right? There's something about still being a kid, being a teenager. You only get it once, right? You're only 15, 16, 17, 18 years old once, and enjoy these years a little bit. Yes, I know there's a lot of pressure. You want to get to the biggest stage. Trust me. If you still enjoy your teenage years a little bit, I don't think that's going to crush you. Now, obviously, dominate and work hard with the hours you have in the day to dominate and outwork the competition, but still be a teenager. Still hang out with your buddies from your hometown all the time. Go to In-N-Out Burger, just mess around. So I don't know. We used the doorbell ditch, right? You can't anymore because of the Ring cameras dang people, but right, they're just be a kid, be a teenager, right? It's cool when you could see these kids like a Ryder Lyons or Troy Bowens or any of them just be a kid and be a teenager, just go out and hang out with their buds because just like this, you'll be 10 years older, you'll be 20 years older, and you're like, where the heck did the time go? And you don't want to live with any regret there.
That's a good point. All right, let's shift over to girls basketball. We'll go back and forth here. I'm going to lead into you here, Jordan, here in a second. But Nick Pecoraro did a nice top 20 for us at Sacramento Bee today. Top ranked Christian Brothers no surprise there. Off to a great start with a win over McClatchy recently. Number 2, Antelope. Number 3, Oak Ridge. Number 4, McClatchy. Wood Creek. Casumas Oaks. Del Oro. Number 8, Placer. Folsom. Vanden. Faith Christian, the small school that can and has and will continue to do up in Yuba City with Lauren Harris. Number 12, Grant. Sheldon of Elk Grove Unified. Liberty Ranch. Haley Smith and the Hawks of Galt. Oak Grove Thundering Herd at 15, Inderkum Tigers, Davis Blue Devils, Colfax Falcons at 4 and 6, ranked 18th, but they are playing a brutal schedule. 12 Bridges of Placer County, West Campus of the Sac City Unified. Jordan, back to you. Any concern with Coach Simpson up at Colfax with the unusually slow start? Is it really just a strength of schedule? They also graduated the house, and what about Wood Creek at number 5? The Timberwolves of Placer County, and maybe an update on the Del Oro Golden Eagles at number 7, looking just fine at 9 and 2.
Yeah, I think there's going to be people that look at the record right now with Colfax. I know they just lost to Spanish Springs too, so I mean, seeing it 4 and 7, they're going to be like, well, that's not what we're used to seeing from them. And yeah, but I mean, look at who these losses are against. Carondelet to open the season. Redwood up in Larkspur, another great program. They lost by 13 to Antelope again, an Antelope team that's looked like one of the best in the section so far. They lost by 5 to McClatchy in a game they were winning in the fourth quarter. It just slipped away from them. But I mean, no shame in losing to a program like that. And then, I mean, Brentwood School down in LA and Spanish Springs, they lost both of those. But again, two strong programs. So if you look at those losses, it's not a bad loss there. And I mean, look at some of these wins they have too. They got this win over Union Mine, a good win over Rockland, a win over Pleasant Valley on the road up in Chico in a rematch of the NorCal title from 2 years ago. And Grigori out of Modesto, they beat by almost 50. So I mean, they're not playing these slouches. I don't think there's any cause for concern. I think, a lot of this is they had a group that won 121 games by the time they had graduated that senior class, a lot of them 4-year starters. And I think, it takes some time for some of these new kids to get in the mix. They've been dealing with some injuries as well. I don't have any concern for them. I mean, this is a group that I think in league play the last couple of seasons, they are, I want to say something like, I mean, we're doing some quick math here, but 28 or 14 no. These last 4 years of them in league play, 14 no, 13-1, 14 no, 9 and 1. So, they've run through the PVL. From what I've seen so far, it looks like they're still the PVL favorites. I think the cause for there will be, maybe a little cause for concern if they start dropping a couple league matchups and whatnot. Maybe if you start seeing 2 or 3 league losses, sure. But I don't think there's any reason to hit the panic button with this team. And, programs like Colfax, they don't rebuild, they reload. And I mean, a case in point too, if you would ask me at this time last year if I thought Rockland would be playing for a section championship in boys hoops, I would have said no. If you asked me last year at this time or a couple years ago at this time if I thought Whitney's girls team was going to defend their section title and get back, I would have said no. So, December, there's still a lot of things being worked out. I think this next week or two is really where we start seeing who these teams really are. So yeah, I don't think there's any concern there with this Colfax team. These Wood Creek girls, though, I mean, that's a team that you mentioned, Joe. They look very, very good so far. They've put together a good resume. I mean, they're sitting at I think 10 and 4 right now. And I mean, if you look at some of their wins, Whitney, a good win, Granite Bay, West Park, McNair, and they lost to Davis. That's a good program, but beating Pleasant Grove, beating Folsom, beating Oak Ridge. I mean, they lost to Folsom in the second go around. El Capitan, a good program they lost to. Chico, another good program they lost to. So this is a team that I think is looking like the favorite. And they've got a pair of freshmen, too, that are going to be making some noise for some time there. I mean, they've got Kennedy Hull and Caitlin Hull, the forward duo, both at 6'2". So that's a good problem to have if you're Wood Creek. And I mean, if you look at this team, too, they've got I think 2 seniors on this roster, so they're young and they look like a program that can make this noise for some time now. And how about Del Oro too, blocking out the outside noise? They're now 9 and 2 on the season, I believe. Madeline Poe is a fantastic player for them. They have been really just studs on this team, and then a lot of great players. I mean, they lost Bella Von Seipler last year and Peyton Hyde, 2 girls that are tough to replace, but finding ways to still end up with talent. I'm sorry, they're actually 10 and 2. My computer was going a little slow there. And then how about the big too? They have Wyatt Kelly, their freshman. She has been impressive. Frankie Steffes, another impressive player for them. And with all the turnover they've had, all the issues they've had, this is a team that's blocking out the outside noise. And I mean, it looks like a team that can very well be in the mix in the SFL and in Division Two.
That's outstanding. And Chris Jackson, touch on Christian Brothers and Antelope a little bit. It all starts with coaching. Sean Chambers is at Antelope. He was our Sacramento Bee Player of the Year in 1983, 33-1 Highlands Scots team of North Sacramento. Coach Foster, Shannon Foster, was a really good player at Christian Brothers when she went by Shannon Hicks, her maiden name. So here she comes and getting section championship teams and teams to Golden One. So it starts with coaching, and Christian Brothers and Antelope are expecting to be in the section finals at Golden One here in a couple of months, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. Christian Brothers, they are ranked number 2 in the section. The only team ranked better in the section right now is St. Mary's of Stockton, who is nationally ranked and who beat San Ramon Valley, an NCS Open champion, earlier this month. But Christian Brothers brought back so much. They graduated Alea Harmon, who's now looks like she's doing great things at Cal Baptist already as a freshman. But Olivia Novi is back, third-year varsity player. Junior has 6 offers. She can hit shots from anywhere, but her leadership goes beyond her years. Joy Omashakin, she's got a UC Santa Cruz offer. She's a forward, but she can handle the ball. Elite defender, rebounds, does everything a coach could ever ask for. She is a coach's dream. This whole team is. Journey Williams Mitchell is back. Layla Serrano is back. They are all ranked top 45 in the area. And then Antelope. What's crazy about them is how young they are, too. Their top 5 scorers are either freshmen or sophomores. Kamaria Charlo, Paradise Manning, Kalia Johnson, Shayla Taplin, London Odom. And their number 6 scorer is a junior. So Antelope looks like they're just getting started. They're 12-1. They just won the Trojan toss up hosted by Oak Ridge. So they've got a big tournament win there where they beat, it looked like Pleasant Grove, Colfax, Oak Ridge, and then recently they beat Delora by 25, Granite Bay by 8, and then they just beat Intercom by 29 to win West Park's tournament as well. But super young, obviously having Sean Chambers roam on the sideline there, and his coaching tree just spread so wide, right? You look to David Whitsett at Monterey Trail and guys like that, but it's Sean Chambers is one of the best, and so is Shannon Foster, and it would be crazy to think that they won't be playing at Golden One Center come here in less than 2 months is how crazy that is. Isn't that a weird thing to say? Because it feels like football playoffs are starting now. Basketball playoffs are almost here too, thinking about it. But you never know. This season, football was a bonker season. Basketball has been crazy and unpredictable a lot of ways. So we'll probably get some teams that we are not talking about right now that make a run. Remember El Capitan boys last year made that run to Golden One. Yes, lost to Christian Brothers, but who picked them to beat Placer and Burbank and then make it to Golden One? I don't, besides people at that school and on that team, probably nobody else.
Yeah, I know, amazing. It's the one thing as we sign off here, the one thing that's refreshing about girls basketball over the decades is so many scholarship players, so many championship teams, large school enrollment, medium school, all the way to the smallest schools. We got Faith Christian up at Yuba City now. Those kids don't leave. I mean, we don't see star freshmen leave and bounce around and go to another school. There aren't any of these prep schools for girls. These girls stay at their schools, and girls, there a lot of these powerhouse programs that we've talked about over the years and in today, they'll have 4-year starters because they're good players as freshmen and they stay. That's where the sustaining power happens. And I'm refreshed that they stay put. There's a measure of loyalty and getting it. And girls like to be with their buddies, their teammates, and guys I think are a little wired differently. I don't think they compete harder. Girls care just as much, sometimes, well, a lot of times more so. But anyways, we recommend anybody go check out a high school game. It's a great value for the dollar. If you're tired of the Kings and you're tired of not seeing any fundamentals and screens and backdoor plays, and you're tired of just launching up of three-pointers and all that, high school basketball, there's so many good coaches, there's so many good players, the tickets are affordable, it's fun. Go check out the Kennel Arnett up in Auburn at that great gym, Earl Crabb Gym. Placer High School. McClatchy High School has a great gym, in the Sac City Unified in Sacramento. Christian Brothers, we think of Christian Brothers, that school's been there since the 1870s. They went co-ed some 30 years ago. And that sure turned out well for them, for the Christian Brothers Falcons. And Antelope's not that terribly old of a school. Oak Ridge opened in 1980, so that's not terribly old. Wood Creek has only been around, I think, 30, 31 years. So pretty good stuff. We'll talk more about all of these teams and more next week. Give us all a follow on social media and on online, the .coms. We're trying to give as much coverage as we can because the area deserves it. For my good friends, Chris Jackson, Jordan Georgeson, Joe Davidson, we'll see you all soon. Until then.